Senator John Boozman, thank you for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you. Let's talk about what's going on in your re-election campaign right now. You now have an announced candidate running against you. Conner Eldridge is running as a Democrat for the U.S. Senate in 2016. What type of campaign are you expecting?
Well, we're going to continue to do the things that we've been doing. Doing our best to represent the people of Arkansas with the conservative values that I think they expect out of their Congress people in Washington. Working really hard to try and do an outstanding job with constituent service. We understand that we work for the public; they don't work for us. Just trying to use the power of the office for good. I'd say the other thing, Robbie, is it's so important. The number one thing is I've been around Arkansas as much as anybody, is just trying to create a climate that's conducive to people hiring people, to give people job opportunities. And that's really what's on the mind of the public. If you can't, if you don't have a job, if you can't support yourself and make a living wage, all of these other problems that we talk about really are pretty inconsequential.
It did not take long for some firepower to come from the National Republican Senate Committee as well as the State Republican Committee to basically label Conner Eldridge as Obama's lawyer, basically citing that he was appointed by President Obama to his U.S. Attorney's post over in the Western District. Is that a fair thing to do, to link him to President Obama? And basically, he prosecutes federal crime because he was appointed. Is that a fair criticism of him?
It is what it is. I think that if you work for the president, if you work for Eric Holder, people like that, if you supported them in the last two elections, and felt strongly, with their policies, that I think that, it is what it is. We talk about Washington being broke. It is broke, but it's broken because of the president, because of his policies, and because of Senator Harry Reid, leading the Senate. We're so fortunate this year. Republicans have been in control only 7 or 8 months. But when you look, I think we've had, in 2014, only had 15 amendments voted for. This year we've already had 165. Working hard to get things like the doc fix with Medicare, protecting Medicare. That's something we've been working on for years. Actually got that passed. The Clay Hunt suicide bill. We have 22, 23 veterans every year committing suicide. Again, that's been signed into law. Things like No Child Left Behind, cleaning that up. I was on the school board for 7 years. I understand the frustration of our teachers and administrators, making it such that we're pushing more power back into the hands of the state and the local school districts. That's passed the Senate. So really have accomplished a number of positive things in that regard.
But it is fair criticism to link Conner Eldridge, your Democratic opponent, in theory, to President Obama just because of that one appointment, you're saying?
No, I think so. I mean, the question is, right now the president, through his directives, which, right now is on hold because a judge is leaning towards, the fact that states are very concerned that it's unconstitutional, the amnesty program of the president. He doesn't have the authority to do that, but the Department of Justice is the one that is, follows those protocols. And so I think if you have somebody that's voted for the president, the last couple times being very supportive of his candidacy, again, I think that's fair game.
All right, let's shift gears to talk about something else making some national headlines over the last few weeks. I know you are staunchly...
The only other thing
Go ahead.
Well, the only other thing, again, to that, Roby, again, my concern is not about those things. My concern is about doing our job, working hard to represent the people of Arkansas. And there's plenty of time for all the campaign rhetoric and stuff. It's sad. These things seem to be moving up earlier and earlier every year. But right now, my focus is not, not on that situation. My focus is doing the best we can to represent the people.
Well,
of Arkansas.
we did move our party primaries up earlier this year, so that's a little bit of the early start there to the campaign season. Planned Parenthood has made a lot of national headlines over the last few weeks. The video controversy is certainly something you're very familiar with. I know you are staunchly pro-life. You've made that very clear on a number of occasions. Word coming out of Washington towards the end of the week is that Senator Ted Cruz, your colleague from Texas, is perhaps looking at trying to find a way to defund Planned Parenthood, and he has said he does not mind risking a government shutdown again, much like he did in terms of procedural maneuvers a couple of years ago on defunding Obamacare. Would you support shutting down the federal government if it meant defunding Planned Parenthood?
Well, we're going to use every tool in the toolbox to try and shut down Planned Parenthood. When you look at the videos, I think there's real question as to whether legal things have been crossed in that regard, but certainly morally and ethically, when you look at harvesting, little ones that are in the womb, making it such that, how do you bring those along where you can eventually crush this part and harvest a liver here and lungs here and maybe a head here. Again, that's crossed the line. So I'd very much like to defund them. And again, taking those dollars that are spent is in regards to women's health, not abortion, but women's health, the mammograms, things like that, and then putting that into community health centers and things like that so that you don't lose any loss of, helping women in that regard.
But do you think it will?
I don't know of anybody that wants to shut down. I don't know of anybody that wants to shut down the government, except for a very, very few. Many of them Democrats, they're talking about. They'd love for us to shut down the government, but I don't think that's the answer, and I don't think that will be supported.
You don't think it'll get to that point?
I don't think it'll get to that point. On the other hand, like I say, I'm for using every other tool that we can muster in defunding Planned Parenthood. I'm so glad that the governor has taken a lead on that in Arkansas. Several other states have done that, and it's just everybody working together. I think it shows the importance of the next election in the sense, we need a strong president that would take the lead in these kind of things and get rid of an agency like that that would act the way that it has on these videos.
Are you still standing behind former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee as your presidential candidate?
Mike is a favorite son. He's a good friend, and I've known him for many, many years. He's a good person, and so yes, very much so.
All right, he's made some headlines this past week with supporting Kim Davis in Kentucky, the county clerk there that did not want to issue marriage licenses on grounds of religious objections to married gay couples that wanted to get married. Is she right in that respect, or do you support what she's doing, or do you think that she should follow the Supreme Court's decision on gay marriage and issue those marriage licenses?
Well, I understand her concern, and I feel very strongly that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that definition has been around for not only in recent history, but literally for centuries. So I understand her point. On the other hand, we're a nation of laws, and I think if you're in that situation, when the Supreme Court rules that it is the law of the land, then I think you have to follow that or you have to resign if it's a matter of conscience. The problem is, where do you draw the line? I mean, do you not pay your taxes if you're concerned about a particular area of government or this or that? So nobody's criticized the president more than I have on his stand on illegal immigration in the sense of amnesty, just by decree, saying that we're going to essentially grant all of these people amnesty. He doesn't have the constitutional authority to do that. On the other hand, like I say, that's again, I've been very, very much vocal critic in that regard. He needs to support the law, and again, I think she needs to support the law also.
All right, I'm getting a wrap-up sign, but I want to ask you one last question here. I promised I'd let you talk about the bipartisan legislation that you're helping with on child nutrition programs that will come up potentially for some work next week. What's that going to mean for Arkansas?
Well, what it's going to mean, Robbie, not only for kids in Arkansas, but kids throughout the country, we have a situation where we have a lot of kids that are eligible for free and reduced lunches. And many of these kids simply, if they don't get those lunches at school, they don't eat very well at home at all. And so the problem is, once school's over, all of that ends, and then you have this summer gap. So what we're trying to do is work, with great public-private partnerships to make it such that we go on through the summer and take care of these kids so that they get a meal or two during that time. About $350 is the increase that parents have to come up with during that time. The problem is that those kids' families simply don't have the money. So just to try and make it such that we have a good, seamless transition into the summer.
All right, Senator John Boozman, as always, appreciate you visiting with us, and let's get you off the satellite and out of Washington and back down here for a face-to-face interview soon.
Hey, I'd love to be with you drinking coffee and eating donuts.
All right, Senator Boozman, thanks.